Roles. The role and responsibilities of a finance manager towards role and responsibilities of a finance manager towards number one, shareholders. Shareholders are the owners, those who own a company, those who have subscribed to the shares of a company. We are referring to them as the shareholders. Now, what do you think, learners, could be the role of finance manager towards the shareholders? We all know that the responsibilities of a finance manager towards the shareholders are crucial for maintaining transparency, for maximizing shareholders' value, and ensuring the well-being of the company. So one key role is maximizing shareholders' wealth. That is one role. One, maximizing shareholder wealth. Because you all know, candidates, that people or institutions invest in companies. One of the objectives of subscribing to the shares of a company is so that your wealth will be maximized. And therefore, the primary responsibility of a finance manager is to make financial decisions that contribute to the maximization of shareholders' wealth. And that involves optimizing the allocation of resources in order to generate the highest possible returns for shareholders. You understand? Such that if the finance manager has at his disposal, say, 10 billion shillings, and the 10 billion shillings are to be invested, the finance manager should ensure that the 10 billion shillings is invested in projects that will generate the highest possible returns for the shareholders. That's why in this subject we'll be learning certain techniques in capital budgeting that may help a finance manager in making such optimal decisions that will yield optimal results. Capital budgeting techniques helps a company to evaluate, or the finance manager to evaluate, potential projects before they are undertaken. So such that the company, if is to evaluate 4 projects, each project will be evaluated, for example, using the net present value technique. Each project's NPV will be calculated before the project is undertaken, such that the one that yields the highest possible NPV is selected. If that happens, then the finance manager will be maximizing the wealth of the shareholders. You understand? So that's the primary responsibility of a finance manager, to maximize shareholders' wealth. And I've said that involves allocating resources to projects that generate the highest possible returns. Giving accurate information, the best word there would be transparency. Financial reporting and transparency. Financial reporting and transparency. Number 2, I'll use your points: financial reporting and transparency. Financial reporting and transparency. That is a responsibility that a finance manager has towards the shareholders. The finance manager has to ensure timely and accurate financial reporting. Transparency in financial statements, candidates, helps the shareholders make informed decisions, make informed investment decisions. So finance managers should adhere to accounting standards and also communicate financial information in a clear and understandable manner. Is that clear? Someone here said risk management. I agree with you. 3, risk management of risk. That is a role that a finance manager has to play. The finance manager has to implement risk management measures or strategies to protect the shareholders' investments. And that includes identifying and mitigating financial risks that could impact the company's performance and could impact the share value. Okay, the value of shares. You understand? Risk management. Can I get another point? Let's call it financial planning. Financial planning and financial analysis. This means developing and implementing financial plans that align with the company's strategic objectives. Analysis means providing analysis, providing focus to help the shareholders understand the financial implications of various decisions. So a finance manager should, for example, come up with financial ratios, then help the shareholders in interpretation of the ratios, because ratios help in understanding of the financial statements. Do you understand? And that's why we have something on ratios. Yes, under topic number 8, we have financial ratios. Yes, ratio analysis, financial ratios, and so on. So it is the role of the finance manager to help the shareholders in financial planning and analysis. Financial planning and analysis. The 5th role of a finance manager towards the shareholders is effective capital allocation. Effective capital allocation. What do I mean? Capital allocation. The finance manager is required to make sound decisions regarding capital budgeting and investment projects, considering risks and returns, and so on. Before making a capital budgeting decisions, a finance manager has to gauge the risks and returns of that project, because shareholders expect their funds to be invested in projects that yield positive returns, that enhance the overall value of the shares. Don't know why you are forgetting an obvious responsibility related to dividends. Dividend decisions, dividend policy, dividend policy. Finance managers develop and communicate a clear, should communicate a clear dividend policy. Clear dividend policy. The finance manager should decide on the appropriate level of dividends to be paid to shareholders, while balancing the company's need for retained earnings for growth opportunities. Because candidates, dividends are paid out of profits. At the end of the year, the shareholders may expect to be paid dividends. But these dividends that are to be paid to the shareholders may also, the retained earnings that may be used to pay dividends. The same retained earnings are also sources of capital. Dividends are paid out of profits. What remains after payment of dividends is what we are referring to as retained earnings, which is a source of capital. Do you understand? So the finance manager decides on the appropriate level of dividends, what we call the dividend payout ratio. Out of the profits that are made, what proportion, what percentage should be paid to the shareholders in form of dividends, and what will be retained. So there has to be that balance of the need for retained earnings and the need to pay shareholders their dividends. So the finance manager has a responsibility not only to develop but also to communicate a clear dividend policy. Shareholders may not mind their money being retained for the sake of growing the company, but that has to be communicated. So the finance manager has a responsibility to do that. And that leads me to another role related to communication. Communication with shareholders is a role. Communication with shareholders. Communication with shareholders. Right? Communication with shareholders. The finance manager is required to maintain open and effective communication with the shareholders, and that includes participating in what we call investor relations activities. Okay? Addressing their inquiries and also providing regular updates on the company's financial performance, communication candidates, future prospects of the company, and so on. Communication with the shareholders. So there are many responsibilities. We can go on and cite share buybacks and issuance. We can cite continuous improvement and so on. So these are 7 roles.